Hello, everybody. Welcome to HBCU Drumline Talk. My name is Ricardo Reese, and I'm joined by my brother in percussion, Elijah Powell, also known as EP the Great. And together we are the hosts for HBCU Drumline Talk. And we are happy to be here with you today for our episode 12. And today we have a special guest on our podcast today, with over 45 to 50 years, maybe even more, just as an instructor, as a mentor, as a person in percussion, as a teacher, as well, all around great percussionist. And we want to welcome the great Professor Johnny Lee Lane to our episode 12.
So before we jump into the first question, Rick, for people who might not know, we both attended Virginia State University. 1996 was our freshman year. I went the music education route. You went on the music performance. Would you like to speak upon, about that?
Yeah, it was a great time. In 1996, we both came in young, just ready to, take the program over. When I went into school, did the performance thing, got my degree in a Bachelor's of Arts in Percussion, performance music, and then graduated in 2000 and moved on to do some other things. Went to grad school for percussion as well, and that was it.
Okay. So I stayed the music education route. That was my dream to teach. But, once I finished, I became an instructor at Virginia State Drumline and have been since 2005. Before I guess, Professor Lane, what school did you attend and march for when you were a student in college?
Well, my freshman year, I was at Texas Southern University, long before there was Ocean of Soul and all that kind of stuff. They gave me a full ride, full scholarship. My hometown is Vero Beach, Florida, so I came a long ways to go to college. And it was the beginning of my college career. Texas Southern at that time had a great music department, and I only stayed 1 year, and I transferred to Southern University. Yes, I stayed 1 year at Texas Southern. Then in 1968, right after the death of Martin Luther King Jr., I transferred to Southern University. I had never heard of Southern University before in my life, and it was Dr. Archie Buffkins who said he had some friends at Southern, and Southern did have a full-time percussion instructor, and he suggested that's where I should go. So I transferred to Southern University.
Okay, Professor Lane, that was really great. If you don't mind, just give us a brief knowledge, or just tell us what it was like when you marched in the marching band.
When I marched to Texas Southern, I was kind of frustrated because it was a 25 or 30 piece band, had 2 snare drummers and a tenor drum player, a bass drum player, and a cymbal player, and it was not my cup of tea. I mean, if they had had a percussion professor full time, I probably would have stayed, because it was not about marching band or anything like that. But it was great. We were marching in 5/8 and 5 and 7/8 and stuff like that. Man, it was weird, man. The band director was white. He was not African American. It was Dr. G. David Peters, and he was a trombonist, and he's the one that taught percussion. Because they didn't have a percussion teacher, and so when I went to Southern, that was a different thing. I didn't know they had on the day of our audition, I saw a picture of a big band with an S on it, and I thought it was Michigan State or Penn State or something like that, and the band director Ludwig F. Freeman said, "No, this is Southern, this is us." I said, "Oh, really?" And they, at that time, was marching 192 on the field, 6 lines of 32. And I never knew anything about it. And I was already going there, and then he said something about pre-drill. I said, "What is a pre-drill?" He said, "Yeah, you're going to have to come here early, 2 weeks before school start, and we start pre-drill." And so that was my introduction to HBCU style marching band. And I had all this ability, and I was studying with the world rudimental drum champion, Frank Arsenal, and I brought that style, which nowadays they call swag style. I brought that high stuff and the powerful rolls and the dynamic range. Because back then we had 16-inch snare drums, and so we had so much power, so much dynamic range from soft to loud in between. And so the crescendos were really crescendos. And drum heads were just regular, you know, power stroke head or whatever, you know, and so that was my introduction. And I got there and saw all these drummers, and everybody started looking at me, and I started writing a lot of drum cadences and stuff like that, and they exist today all around the SWAC.
So, Professor Lane, it seems like you transitioned from Texas Southern, and just for all of our viewers out there, just a side note, we just had a conversation with Texas Southern about a week and a half ago. It was a great conversation. We just talked about their percussion program and how they do things there. And, you know, just to hear you talk about when you marched at Texas Southern, it seems kind of odd that, you know, back then you would have been marching in odd time signatures like 7/8 and, you know, strange odd time signatures like that. I didn't know that, so thank you for that information. Just reflecting, you gave us some good information on reflecting history about how the program has changed, and then you made a move to Southern University. Is that correct?
Yes, and I didn't know anything about it. Southern had their own style. It's basically uniform, and this percussion section was designed after the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan, not only the uniform, but the 16-inch snare drum with the ropes underneath, upright tenors, 17-inch back then, and 28-inch bass drums. And at that time, we were using 22-inch cymbals. We only had 4 cymbal players back then. And then somewhere long after I left, they increased the cymbal section to 4 more players. And that's basically the way it is today. And so I got used to it, all that hours and hours outside marching, learning how to march, and playing all this, started learning the sequence. In Southern University, had an organized sequence, which I added to the sequence during my time there with different cadences. And I did the stickings for each one of the cadences, the cadences that were already there, and then the cadences that I wrote. All those stickings for Midnight and Johnny Get a Haircut and all that kind of stuff, all were my stickings that I brought in week after week until we got it all down to every cadence had its own stickings.
Okay, good. So, Professor Lane, who did you study percussion with at Southern University?
Yeah, Mr. Don Dillon. Mr. Don Dillon was the first ever full-time percussion instructor in the state of Louisiana. LSU did not have a percussion teacher. None of the schools had a percussion teacher. As a matter of fact, LSU students used to come over to Southern late at night. You know, the white guys would get together with the black guys, and we would have a good time talking about our careers and stuff like that. Mr. Dillon brought a lot. We had a traveling percussion ensemble. We traveled all over the state. It was the full-time percussion ensemble, and they had a system. Their sequence had a system, and then I added to the system and brought it to the forefront as far as all the fancy stickings and stuff like that. And from my rudimental background, studying with Frank Arsenal. So I brought the back sticking on the stick, which started with me with a cadence I wrote called Stick Cadence. And it was just, back then it was just like, oh, I was doing this for fun. But when I left, everybody just started to remember, and I stayed away from Southern for 17 years, and I never did go back. And when I did go back, people were looking at me as some kind of legend or something. My name basically had stayed around for a long time. I didn't know that. You know, there was no internet and no computers and stuff like that, so you couldn't keep up with what was going on down there.
Thank you, Professor Lane, for that good information. So there are a lot of drummers, percussionists, a lot of instructors with different styles of, you know, the way they play, including myself and Rick. But Professor Lane, please describe your playing style when it comes to traditional marching style.
So my playing style came from Frank Arsenal. You know, he was the world rudimental drum champion, and he was high-powered, and he taught the Cavaliers when they were the Chicago Cavaliers, and when drum bucles was playing power. You know, and they wasn't playing low, and drum heads were not tight. I studied with him, and I brought that same style and that flash, which nowadays they say they call it the swag style. You know, being able to the dynamic range, the sticks movements, and the power when you needed it, and without forcing strokes and stuff down. So I taught, once they saw me play, everybody just kind of started moving over to what they saw in me. And I was so dedicated and I practiced so much on everything. When they did see me practice snare drum, I could look out the practice room window and it'd just be tons of people just soaking in basically what they were in. I had that fancy practice pad that nobody had ever seen before, and everybody, they could hear that practice pad coming through the door of the practice room. And at that time, a lot of the younger percussionists were asking me some of my so-called secrets. They were not secrets. It was just that it was just certain things to develop the flam, certain things to develop the double stroke roll, certain things to develop all those rudiments, and I had mastered. And the elbow thing that I had going, when the stick is down, the elbow is out. When the stick is up, the elbow is in. It's like walking, you know, when you make a step with your left foot, your right hand is out. When you make a step with your right foot, your left hand is out automatically without thinking. So that's the way my drumming was. It was so natural and without being tense and straightforward.
Good. Okay. So for all our viewers, you know, our younger viewers, or, you know, people who might not know about the traditional marching style, Professor Lane, could you please briefly describe what is the traditional marching style for all our viewers who might not know?
Traditional marching style is pick 'em up, toes pointed, and marching 8-5. That's the traditional marching style. Most all the marching bands in my day marched 8-5. It was no, I think Mississippi Valley was the only school that was marching, say, a 65 step. You know, and Russell Boone was there, band director for many years. He brought that sort of core walking style. I never did see them during my time at Southern University, but I had heard about them, and that was the only band. All the other bands that I had seen in the SWAC, and then of course FAMU and some of the other bands. I think we saw Morgan State one time. Everybody was marching the Big Ten style. The marching style came from the Big Ten style. Like I said, the marching style for Southern came from Michigan. The only difference is that instead of standing straight up with the horns, they brought in the swing. That's the only thing added to what Michigan was doing, was the swing. Everything else was the same. Face movements were the same. Pointing the toes and making that 22.5-inch step was the same. And like I said, the uniform looked just like the old Michigan uniform, man. The only difference is you had an S right there and the Michigan had an M. So that traditional style, I always tell people, and when they're talking about Southern, it came from the Big Ten. Now, Dr. Foster graduated from the Big Eight, from FAMU, and that was University of Kansas. So he brought Big Eight, which were similar to the Big Ten style. That was University of Kansas, and back then University of Missouri, and all those schools. So Foster brought that Big Eight style, did some adjustments to that, and went on from there for what you see at FAMU now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's a lot of history that you just provided in a short little bit of time, and some things that I didn't even know. So we do appreciate you providing that information just about Southern in general. So, Prof. Lane, you do your college thing, do your undergrad thing. You go straight into teaching, correct? I mean, outside of grad school.
Yeah, so I'm walking around Southern every day. And people kind of going crazy because they see me in a suit and tie or a shirt and tie every day. And I had a briefcase. And people just couldn't understand, you know, man, as hot as it is, you wear a suit and tie every day. And then, of course, before 4 o'clock, I would change and get into my band stuff to go to practice. I would tell people when they would say that, I say, I'm just in training to what I'm going to be. And they would laugh and they say, what you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be a college professor. I want to teach percussion on a college level. I already knew that, and that's what I was striving for. I was working hard for it all the time. I was dedicated. I didn't let anything sway me the wrong direction or get me off track. I wanted to always stay on track for what I wanted to do. And so it was that attitude that I changed some lives at Southern. All of a sudden I saw other people wearing a shirt and tie and walking around, had bought them a briefcase, and in the briefcase had my sticks and mallets and tuning forks, and my timpani mallets and my other marimba mallets. I had the method books that where I was in. I had them in there, and all kind of other little gadgets, tuning keys and stuff like that. And that was the briefcase, because this was long before there was ever a mallet bag or stick bag. There were no stick bags. There were no mallet bags anywhere. And so people have to put themselves in my perspective in the late 60s, where I started buying a lot of stuff from Frank's Drum Shop in Chicago, and just stuff I had seen in magazines and stuff like that, and get a newsletter, a newspaper that they were selling all these products in Chicago. And
so basically, it wasn't Steve Weiss.
No, there was no such thing as Steve Weiss. There was no Steve Weiss, no Lone Star Percussion or nothing like that. And you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Of course, you had a music store. If we needed sticks or something like that real fast, you know, we would go to the music store. Back then, everybody bought their own sticks. I mean, they didn't say, hey, here's a pair of sticks or here's a pair of tenor drum mallets, bass drum. You had to go and buy your own stuff back then, and that's basically how it was. So I'm in training. I'm developing to be this person that everybody finally realized once I got to be my senior year. They saw that, hey, I'm going 1 week after I graduated from Southern, I went to graduate school. 1 week after I graduated from graduate school, I had a job at Tennessee State. So it was like I was on the 1 week plan. You know, it's like I'm not gonna sit around and wonder where I'm going. I'm already planning and planning and planning, and I had no idea I was going to Tennessee State, because I had the job at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. We talk about how Tennessee State twisted my arm to come to Tennessee State.
So something that stuck out to me, Rick, before we move on, Professor Lane had mentioned, you know, him wearing suits and ties, you know, every day. I feel that's a very good thing, you know, to get yourself in that mindset of what you want to do. And that could be for any profession. You don't have to be a teacher, or, you know, it could be for any profession. You know, you have to almost start, you know, thinking this is what I'm going to be doing, so I want to get my mind right for that. What do you think about that, Rick?
Man, Elijah, I think that's very important because, you know, like you talked on, you know, it's very important to kind of look at a job and just being ready for that job opportunity, whatever comes up. And you may not even have the job, but you're preparing for it. You know, I saw a great movie one time, and this reminds me of that, where the guy was talking about something. He said, hey, look, this guy lives his job. This guy is the job. Yeah. So I think what Professor Lane is saying here is very important for all of us. You know, it's very motivational for me and our viewers out there. You know, that's just a life lesson. You know, if you want a job, you know, you got to be ready to really live that job. If you want that opportunity, you got to be living that job. And, you know, it's hard enough nowadays to put on a shirt and tie, much less a suit and tie every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really good. That's really important.
Yeah.
Professor Lane, you have really talked a lot about the history at this point in time. I want to transition to some other things at this point. And I actually read a great article in Percussive Arts Society. It was an article by Paul Byer. Actually, the article was in April 2005. Basically how rudiments are used in the college curriculum. And in this particular article, Mr. Byer, you know, Paul, he actually mentions you, and he references your rudiments in slow motion. And he actually pretty much talks about it as in saying that, hey, this Rudiments in Slow Motion is the real deal. So for our guests out there and for Elijah and myself, can you really talk to us about what exactly is the real deal?
Well, you know, the majority of people I meet today, are fascinated with the rudiments of slow motion. You got to remember now, the rudiments of slow motion is what I put on in a tablet in 1965 or 66. I was in just 10th and 11th grade. I started documenting how to start off every rudiment. And at that time, we had the 26 American drum rudiments. That was the key. These were the scales of drumming. You had the 13 essential rudiments, and then you had from 14 to 26, the other 13. Together, they were called the 26 American drum rudiments. And Frank Arsenault had a record. And that record is what I listened to from the time I was in 9th grade to when I started documenting everything, because he had a certain way to start off every rudiment, so slow, so accurate, so clean. And as he increased the speed, nothing changed, it just got faster. So when the rudiments are by themselves, not in the music, because there are multiple ways to write a 5-stroke roll in the music, or a flam accent or something like that in music. But by itself, if somebody say just play a flam accent or to play a 5-stroke roll, you have to know the beginning rhythm. So I sat and documented the beginning rhythm that I can teach a 5th grader and I can teach a grown man. Because this information should be part of your being as a drummer. Because if somebody asks you the question, can you show me? You can't show them in a fast way. Here it is right here. No, you got to take it down to the slowest point. What is it? What is the rhythm for the Aramesi, single Aramesi? You just can't just play it. You got to be able to say it. And you got to be able to say it's 4/8 notes and a quarter note when it comes to a 5-stroke roll. You know, if it's a single drag tap, it's 2/8 notes, 2 quarter notes, and the accent on the last quarter note. I mean, you have to know this information. It's so valuable. And recently, I've been doing a lot of Zoom masterclass. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I got Florida A&M University, and they wanted this rudiments in slow motion. I'm doing that tomorrow. And everybody's getting fascinated with it because it's so easy. You're dealing with quarter notes and 8th notes. And the only thing you're not dealing with quarter note 8th notes is the Aramesi, because you got to talk about those 2 notes before you get there. Da-da. The da-da is there, and then the 3/8 notes is da-da short, 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 long. Da-da short, 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 long. Da-da short, 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 long. Did the short, 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 long. Did the short, short. Everything has a time to it. And so that's the whole rudiments of slow motion. As a matter of fact, I got it right here. I got a little bit of it right here. I keep it on the stand all the time because I'm doing master classes. And it's unique. I mean, I was a young kid who said, I have to write these beginning slow rhythms down because it's going to be incredible for me being a teacher. By that time in 1966, I knew I wanted to be a college professor. I had already met one when I would go to the University of Kansas every summer for 6 weeks. And I had private lessons with a college professor. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so that's why when I got to Southern, I was on it then. That's when I started wearing the suit and tie and the shirt and tie.
Okay, Professor Lane, you got your book here, Rudimental Snare Drum Grooves. How do you think that's being used for HBCU drum lines today? And is the application, is it being applied by HBCU drum lines, or is it more your techniques that are being applied?
Well, all of my exercises that I do, here's the book right here, Rudimental Snare Drum Grooves, written by me and Johnny Lee Lane and Richard L. Walker. And Richard taught at Pine Bluff for a few years in the HBCU, and now he's associate dean of the arts at Utah State University. All right, and so this book has all of my exercises. Used to be in the early days, I used to have a handout, had 24 exercises in it. and I used to give it out to everybody. I used to make hundreds of copies and when I would go around and do these clinics, I would put about 10 or 15 on each table so people can have it, especially the percussion professor. All those 24 exercises are in here. And those are the 24 exercises that I did for my whole career as far as development. In the plan, the roles, and everything else, and combination of rudiments, 5-7-9, flam accent into flam accent and 16th, flam accent and 8th notes into flam accent and 16th note, and then ending with non-accented flam taps and back into the flam accent and 8th notes. So it's combining rudiments, and I had one special flam exercise that I basically got from the University of Kansas, and I remember that exercise, and I wrote it down. I kept it with me for my whole career, and it's in here. It's number 27 in the flam section. It's my favorite flam exercise, but you can't tackle this exercise unless you can really play the flam, because it'll kill you. You can't play anything that sounds like a flam. It's got to be the real flam. The real flam. There are 3 types of flam: flat flam, fake flam, and real flams. That's all I have to say.
There it is.
So the book is out there. You can get it from Amazon, so forth and so on. And it has a CD with it. So everything in the book, Richard is playing all the exercises in here. And so everything in the book, if you want to hear it, has a number by it. You just go to that number and listen to it in case you can't read something or not understand something. It's published by Hal Leonard. Well, I know they're using my techniques, but I don't know if they're using the book, or maybe the teachers have the book. But it's a great thing for the students to buy the book, and so they can have it in their library. I think everybody. I started developing my percussion library when I was 13 years old. I was in 8th grade, and I started seeing magazines, and on the back of the magazine shows all these books, and Ludwig magazine, Ludwig Drummer magazine. And I started buying these books, and it was at the University of Kansas my first time there that I went into a music store, and I saw every book I had seen in the magazines. I called my mom. I said, "Mom, I see every book. I see everything that I need is in one place." She said, "Well, how much is it going to cost?" So I added it all up and everything. The guy said $250. And there was a lot of books, and stick control was like $3, and so I mean it was a lot of books for back then. And so my mom wired me the money, and that was the beginning of my percussion library. I saw Goodman timpani book. I saw the Golden Bird method snare drum books, and just so many books that I had seen. The Art of Drumming by J. Burns Moore. It was just unbelievable, and to this day I appreciate that moment when I walked into that music store and I saw all of those books in one place at one time. I bought them all, and so it's important. I mean, if you see somebody has a book, or if you know somebody like myself, me and Ralph Hardiman, who have signature sticks, it's best to support. I mean, Ralph has the #1 stick in the world, and sold all over the world. And my stick is just coming up, and we hope that hopefully people will investigate. I spent a lot of time on making this stick happen. It's the best thing I want to put in my hand as far as rudiments drumming, and I'm working on my technique and stuff like that. So go out and get it.
So good. But one more thing before you move on. He says, some viable information. One thing was, he mentioned building up, his repertoire. And I think he mentioned something about his mother sent him $250 to buy, books, different books and stuff. I see that as a good thing. You want to have, and it doesn't pertain to music. It could be any profession, anything in your career. It's always good to have, a library of different resources, books, stuff you can go back and look at, to help, sharpen your skills. But, when he said that, it was one book that stood out, that I had in undergrad was the stick control for the snare drummer by George Lawrence Stone. And I still use it now with some of my, students, at Virginia State. different exercises. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. I still use it now. But yeah, like he said, it's good to have different stuff, you know. And I have other books, but this is one that sticks out to me. What about you, Rick?
Yeah, man, that stick control is a staple. I think that for anybody who's out there in the percussion world, they know about stick control. I have that book as well. I think the two books that I really use and have used for a very long time and are still using today, I still reference these books. One is by Ted Reed. It's called Progressive Steps to Syncopation. As you can see, I've used it so much, the front cover is gone. It didn't look like this when I got it. You know, it's gone. But this is an important book that I use. That's in part of my collection, and also this is one that I used on a regular basis. Modern Reading Text by Louis Belson, and as you can see, it's all beat up, front cover coming off and everything. But you know, these are all books that any percussionist, well, at least I have in my library. You know, I'm sure other percussionists have what they prefer to use. And like you said, Elijah. Not just with percussion. If you in any other profession, I'm sure you're going to have, resources that you use to reference to make your job better. Yeah. And these are some of the resources that we use as percussionists. So by all means, please, for you percussionists out there, for you instructors out there, start building up your library, because it will only help you in the long run. The books never get too old. You can always go back to them.
Yep. Very good information.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Lane, you've really given us some good information so far, and a lot of history in what you told us at this point. And I've seen you put on a lot of clinics. I've even met you as well. And one thing that that sticks out to my mind when I've seen some of your presentations that really stuck with me is when you talked about the importance of leadership. And if you can, for our viewers and for Elijah and myself, can you please talk briefly us about the ladder of achievement and the importance of proper leadership in the HBCU drumline today and in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky because I was, before I even got in music, I always was a leader. When I was playing Cowboys and Indians, when I was jumping rope a lot, when I was running and jumping, I was very fast. I got the nickname Night Train Lane. I mean, I was always, without even putting myself in that position, somehow ended up being a leader. And everybody kind of followed me and they listened to me. And when I was in high school, the younger drummers coming up, man, they would just be knocking on my door. Can you show me this? Can you show me that? When I went to college and people would find out that I would come home from college, they would knock, 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 knock. People knocking at my door. I mean, because I ended up being a teacher when I was about 15, 16 years old. I was the drum teacher for a music store in my hometown. And that was the only time I could see white students. I mean, because I came up during the time it was totally segregated. And I went to all black school, all black community, all black church, all black everything. And then except for when I went to the music store, then the parents would bring their kids in, and that was be my moment that here I am in this segregated South. I'm teaching some white kids how to play drums and stuff like that because they had read about me and seen my pictures in the newspapers and stuff like that. And so I was already headed that direction, and I was a leader, and people would listen. And when I got to Southern, even though I was a transfer student, and they hated guys from Florida. They couldn't believe that I came to, why you didn't go to FAMU, and I said, well, I didn't, all my friends went to FAMU. I mean, I just didn't feel like I wanted to leave the state because I was going to the University of Florida. I got a full ride at the University of Florida, and the band directors and people that recruited me there to audition and all that, and once I auditioned, I got a 4-year full ride, everything paid for, scholarship. Now it's time for me to fill out the forms to send it in to be accepted at the University of Florida. At the time, there were no African Americans on that campus. So immediately my stuff goes in. I check the box that says Negro, and that rest is history. You're not accepted at the University of Florida. So So I got mad at the University of Florida. I mean, at the state of Florida. And I said, I got to leave the state. And so that's how I ended up. Some kind of way the University of Florida people connected with somebody at Texas Southern and say, you have to get this guy. And I got a letter from Texas Southern. Never heard of Texas Southern before. Like I said, I never heard of Southern. And I had seen Grambling on the Super Bowl back in the day. And I had heard people around me say High Hampton and Howard and schools like that, and Fort Valley State and Morehouse and stuff like that. I knew about those schools, but I had never heard of Southern and Texas Southern. And so that's how I ended up there. And that leadership, when I walked on that Southern campus, people basically started showing me super respect. And when I would get up and talk, they would listen. When I would say, this is how we're going to do this, or here's the new cadence I just wrote, you had to write. Back then we had to write everything on the board. We had a big old board. You had to write everything on the board, and you had to put the sticking in it, right, left, whatever. And then if I already had to develop what kind of moves is going to be, I have to demonstrate that as we learn the cadence. So I wrote the snare drum part, tenor drum part, bass drum part, cymbal part on the board. That's how we learn all our cadences. And then once we learn the cadence, then we erase the cadence and we put it where it's supposed to. So you play the sequence up until that last cadence you just wrote, and you go back at the beginning of the sequences. That's how we learn the sequence. So everybody get used to that cadence being now at the end. You know, we didn't just throw cadences in the middle and in between. The cadences that I wrote were added to the sequence, just like the cadence I wrote called Jackson State. Everybody think that Southern stole the cadence from Jackson State. When I got up in front of the Jackson State people 2 years ago when I did a clinic down there, I said, I just want to get the record straight. That cadence that Southern plays, it's called Jackson State. I wrote it in 1969. And I gave the name Jackson State because we had marched in Jackson State homecoming. And then we had marched through all the neighborhoods. It was a long parade. Dr. Gregg said, he said, band is not playing another note. We got a game tonight, so drummers, you got it. And while we were fooling around, I'm telling guys what to play and so forth. Doom doom, doom doom, and drummers shot, shot, and I just fooling around. And then when I got to the bus, I said I need a piece of paper. Somebody had a tablet, and I wrote it all out. And Mr. Dillon said we go add that one to the sequence on Monday when we get back. I said okay. He said, but what's the name? I said I'm gonna just call it Jackson State, and that's how that cadence became the name Jackson State. Not because we stole it from Jackson State, it's because I was at Jackson State marching in their homecoming parade when I made it up. And so the leadership thing carried over into my early days as a college professor. I thought being 22 years old, my first college job, being director of percussion, and also assistant director of bands at Tennessee State, I thought that was going to cause a problem because most of my graduate system was 4 years older than me. The students were 20, 21, and some were 22, and I'm 22. So how this is going to be? I walked in with a positive attitude. They found out that I can really play, and I played a lot of stuff. I played marimba, played timpani, played all that stuff, and I had the knowledge. And from day one, I never had any student in my whole career, 33 years of college teaching, to ever talk back at me. And so that's where the leadership from being in college and being section leader and all that at Southern went right into graduate school, where I had to teach undergraduate percussion majors and conduct a percussion ensemble. And I developed, leadership just started to develop for me naturally, not just reading a book and saying, yeah, I need to do this and yeah, I need to do that. It was just me, Johnny, the person who's in charge, period.
So going into our next question, which is something that is a big accomplishment that I feel, a lot of good drummers, percussionists are not able to, achieve this goal, which is, having their own, sticks with their name on it. Man, I feel that's a very big accomplishment, and I salute everyone who has, their own drumsticks. But Professor Lane, please talk to us about your line of Vic Firth Marching drumsticks, and how does it feel?
Johnny Lee Lane, they call Groove Series sticks now. At the beginning, they would call it a groove stick, and then found out that somebody from ProMark had a drum set stick called Groove Stick, and he's a friend of mine, Rick Latham, and so we dropped the name Groove Stick, and if you look in the catalog today, it'll just say Groove Series stick, so forth and so on. This stick was designed after a stick that I really, really loved that Ludwig made back in the day called a Lamo stick. And the Lamo stick had little black lines in it, So it was something about that Lamo wood and the tapering of the stick. See my tapering, and as I have all of the Vic Firth sticks over there, and I look at all the sticks, none of them at that time had this kind of tapering on the shoulder of the stick. You got the beads, the neck, the shoulders, so that had a lot to do with it. And the balance and the weight to make sure it's not too heavy on the front end, but just perfectly for when you're practicing rudiments and when you're playing, and at the same time when you're in that drum line. So I got it to the point. They sent me 6 different times. They sent me 6 different sticks. First 2 or 3, I could just shake my head, man. They were not good. And then they got to number 4. Then I said, "You're getting close." And I said, please, the tapering is just not enough. And so they finally sent me the 6th set. And when I played with them for about 2 weeks, and I picked them up every day, and I felt good every time I picked them up. Then I would go and pick up the other Vic Firth sticks and play with each one. And then I would pick up the one they had sent me, and I say, that's it. I say, that's my stick. And the sound. These sticks are basically designed to sound good on the practice pad and on the drum. You can get some sticks that sound good on the drum, but sound bad on the practice pad. Or something that sounds good on the practice pad, and it's terrible on the drum. So this is the two-way stick. The two-way stick that will allow you to practice on your pad, whether it's hard rubber or whatever, or just regular pad. I don't practice on very hard those plastic pads and those high. I can't deal with that. I'm too old to deal with that sound. Plus, it gives me a headache. I got to have a rubber pad, and I use my favorite pad is a Vic Firth stock pad. So that stick was developed, and it was similar to the Ludwig Lamo stick, which they stopped making in the late 60s or early 70s. And I was upset with that. You couldn't get the stick anymore, man. And I'm a Ludwig artist now, man. So I'll find somebody to say, hey, look, man, we need to look into. If you guys want a stick, you definitely gonna have to look into that Lamo stick from back in the 60s in the day. So that's how I ended up with the Johnny Lee Lane signature stick. And then they sent me a little piece of paper and say, Johnny, we need your signature. And I go like, signature? I say, I'm not gonna put my signature that nobody can recognize. Just go blue. I'm going like, no way. I want my name spelled out on the stick. You mean to print? I say, print it, Johnny Lee Lane. I say, that's what I want on the stick. And he said, but this is the first time? I say, that's right. It's the first time. So they printed it, Johnny Lee Lane, on the stick, and that became my signature stick.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, man. I want you to be able to see my name on there, man. I don't want nobody to be wondering.
It's on there.
Yeah, just a scribble or something like that, you know. So that's how the stick came into being. And then those tenor drum, they don't make the tenor drum mallets anymore. They don't make the bass drum mallet. They stopped that back in June. I was heartbroken when they did that. And hold on a second. I was heartbroken when they stopped making the bass drum, the boom bass drum beaters, and the tenor drum mallets, which were basically real tenor drum mallets, not small bass drum mallets with that hard core taped up like a tenor drum mallet, and those would destroy your tenor drum heads. You're gonna be buying a lot of tenor drum heads. And then the one we designed as the Scottish beater, which FAMU helped us because they use Scottish, not the big bass drum beaters. They use the Scottish beaters, and so this one basically was really helped by Sheila James and the guys down at FAMU before we decided on this one, the Scottish bass drum beater. So they're gone. Hope that when people hear that they're gone, because I mean they didn't come out and put it out on the internet or anywhere that, hey, we don't make these mallets anymore. So if people complain enough, you know, they just might start making them again.
Okay, Professor Lane. Hey, Professor Lane, if you don't mind me asking, why do you think some of your sticks were canceled?
Well, I personally think there was not enough sales. You know, I always tell people, just like I was lucky, they say, oh, but we're keeping your stick. I say, oh man, thank you. But even sales on my stick, you know, I guess because of COVID, everything really showed up on the books. You know, nobody's buying Johnny Lee Lane tenor drum mallets. Nobody buying Johnny Lee Lane bass drum mallets and stuff like that. Sales are just not. They got rid of a lot of signature sticks too. A lot of drum set artists lost their signature stick. So it wasn't just me personally. But when I see groups on those YouTube videos and stuff like that, I don't watch too many YouTube videos. But when I do, somebody puts something on Facebook and it's on my timeline, I'll check it out a little bit. Very few times I see my bass drum beaters being used and my tenor drum mallets being used. You know, Tennessee State, Southern, they're still using my product. Of course, they know now. Both schools know that they can't get the tenor drum mallets and bass drum mallets. The only other company that made a real tenor drum mallet was the one that we used at Southern in all these years, was the Ludwig. So Ludwig is going to get so many orders of that tenor drum mallet, because that tenor drum mallet is the perfect mallet, similar to mine, that get that tenor sound, and it's not too heavy on the front end. And it's perfectly made, and it's been around forever. So we used it in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s. It was just the Ludwig tenor drum mallet. You know, it had string on it and everything, just like mine. I got that idea from Ludwig, and so forth and so on. So hopefully there will be an outcry of people saying, hey, you know, we need those bass drum mallets, we need those tenor drum mallets, and all the people that follow FAMU will be saying, hey, we need those Scottish beaters again, you know. So
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so that's that's the name of that game. It's all about marketing, man. I mean, I thought when I came out with the Groove series, where we used Prairie View, Bethune-Cookman, Tennessee State, Norfolk State, and Southern as the schools that would help us design these sticks, help us design these mallets. We got their input all the time. They flooded them with product, and until we came up with the right product. And then once we came up with the right product, then we were ready to go.
Thank you, Professor Lane. So please talk to us about the evolution of the traditional HBCU marching style.
the evolution of the HBCU marching style. So, okay, let's go back. When I was growing up, I only saw one HBCU band in person, and that was Florida A&M. I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, and every year they had what they called the Orange Blossom Classic, which was in Miami, Florida. And they would play schools like Grambling, Morgan State, anybody who was whatever. And I would stand on the streets, and I would see FAMU come down the street. And that was my experience of being a young kid and going to the Orange Blossom Classic and watching and hearing FAMU come down the field with those 16-inch snare drums popping and playing that sequence in a slow marching style because they're in the parade. And we would go to the game, so that's my first experience. So I saw FAMU. FAMU developed their style. They had their own unique style. It was FAMU. It was a little bit of the Big Eight because Foster went to the University of Kansas, and as an undergrad, and then Foster developed that style that they have even today, and marching bands were just marching bands. The ultimate number of marching bands back there, as far as members in the group, was 160. 160 something was always the 12 tubas. Everybody, hey, we got to have 12 tubas. You know, when I got to Southern, they had 12 tubas. But we had a lot of brass and a lot of woodwinds and stuff like that. Tennessee State, 12 tubas. And when I first saw Tennessee State, my senior year in college, I had heard so much about Tennessee State and their unique style, which they don't use that style anymore. This was the Tennessee State style. This is what I taught when I went there, and I had to teach the style of Tennessee State. That's what I taught. You know, they've changed that over the years, many years. So it too, all those directors came from Big Ten. Ed Graves went to University of Illinois. Frank T. Greer did graduate work at some of the Big Ten schools. We had people from Iowa going to the University of Iowa. And of course the University of Michigan, Michigan State. And that style evolved. The only thing is the black schools took it to another level when they start swinging the instrument instead of holding them straight and marching like those schools did. They took that style and they gave the swing motion to it, and that evolved. I think the face movements back then were all done from the Big Ten, right face and right abouts and step forward, back turn, the step two patterns, man, and the scissor step. The scissor step came from the University of Michigan, where you go up, you're going this way, going up, then you hit the outline, and then you come back and you're going this way. You know, you're facing that way. So the scissor step was part of, you never saw the scissor step until you saw a dance routine. And the dance routines were never about dancing. In my day, there was no such thing as kick off the dance routine and block band and start dancing. Dance routine, they named it dance routine, but it had nothing to do with dancing. And the reason why I say that is because the dance routine back in my day was all about your precision in the block band, marching, you know, all kind of movement and turns and stuff like that. And somewhere out of the blue, there was the funky chicken, just for a little bit. Once you hit it, the crowd, everybody's standing up. You know, everybody's screaming and hollering, man, because they did not expect that to happen. So it was all about one dance within the block band that's going to show up somewhere. And so that was the meaning of the dance routine. And then as I left many years, the dance routine became a real dance routine where 1, 2, 3, 4, ready, go, you dancing, you know. And I go like, whatever happened to the marching? You're supposed to show your style and everything, and your turns and the splits and stuff like that, and the movement rock and the step touch and the step kick and the step forward back turns and stuff like that. And so it has changed a whole lot. But people don't know the history of the dance routine. Nobody ever talk about it. They don't realize that none of the bands, even FAMU or Southern Tennessee State, they didn't just start out dancing. You know, it was all about your drill within the block band and the things you do. It looked good, spats showing all the time and so forth. And so that evolved into what is now a real dance routine, where you click off on step one and you're dancing. You know, and sometimes that can get carried too far, because people in the stand have seen it and seen it and seen it and seen it. You know, what else can you do? And so I guess that's another time and another generation. The uniforms started to evolve. I mean, the uniforms that I had at Texas Southern was bad. Like, I hated to put them on, man. I mean, you know, I got a picture of myself. I mean, it was kind of good when you look back, because I had to play my own drum at Texas Southern. Just so happened I brought my field drum with me, and that I had in high school. And schools didn't provide marching drums, you know. Me and the other guy, Woodrow Murray, were the two snare drummers, and can't remember who the tenor drum player was and the bass drum player and the cymbal player. But I did see Jackson State that year in 1967 when they played Texas Southern. They brought their band. It was about 64 pieces. They had two snare drummers, two bass drums, two tenor drums, two cymbal players, and they marched all the way around the stadium. That's the first time I had seen another school. That was the only time we saw another school. And they too were in their development stage. And of course, at that time, I never heard of Southern my freshman year. And then we took one trip that year at Texas Southern. We went to Grambling. And so I said, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get a chance to see Grambling. You know, and so we get to Grambling, and you saw all these TV cameras all over the place. I mean, it was just nothing but TV cameras, big trucks and all that. They were filming the movie Grambling White Tiger. And that was about the white quarterback being at Grambling. So that game is in the movie, not the band. I'm glad they just showed the Texas Southern band. We were there, man. It was just cameras everywhere. And so I got a chance to see Grambling for the first time. And that was the only trip we ever made. We only took one bus. Remember, we had about 30 people in the band, right? So one bus, man. We were all on one bus going to Grambling, Louisiana. So, and then the other thing involved in the marching band is that Foster was the first to decide to do fast marching. And fast marching for Foster came from, really, if you look at the entrance for the University of Kansas, they fast march on the field, but they didn't do 360 steps a minute. They did a high step fast march on the field. That's the University of Kansas. I think they still do that today. And I think Foster took that high thing and said, man, if I could just bring those legs down, man, if I could just do that, and then I could actually march faster. And I'm just guessing, you know, he gets there in 1946. He kind of evolved this fast march, you know, where you're playing these cadences, and the bass drums are really keeping everything together. Boom, 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 kind of thing. And it became one of the first schools I ever seen to do a fast march. I mean, when I was in high school and going to the Orange Blossom Classic, seeing that band march like that was so unique and so accurate. It was so good at marching and marching fast, and those cadences were right on it. Back then, it was right on it. And them big old 16-inch snare drum, man, the projection was all over the stadium. That's one thing I appreciate about the 16-inch snare drum. You could hear it. My whole years in college playing, we never played a rim shot. Never. The only rim shots we ever played was in concert formation where we laid the stick down on the head and we hit the stick. Because it was something, did that, cock, didn't see that, cock, you know, that type of rim shot, which was on the stick, and produced a type shot, you know, for a certain tune. But we didn't have to play any rim shots because the 16-inch snare drum, when we played the accent on the 16-inch snare drum, it was heard. I mean, it was heard. And that's why that's where the 8 snares came in with Southern, you know, 8 snares, and they still use 8 snares, but they're using these little 14-inch snare drums, which is every company decided to drop the 16-inch drum. When I got to Tennessee State, the 15-inch drum had come out, and so the set that I got at Tennessee State was 15-inch, and the 16-inch gave us a little bit more bite, but it gave us the same fullness. And then Shayla James, when FAMU went to that Rogers Dynasonic, that was it. That was the best snare drum I had ever heard anywhere, even after 50 years. After 50 years gone from all of that, right? This year I graduated from Southern 50 years starting June. 50 years ago, I graduated from undergrad at Southern.
So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And that snare drum, and Shayla James can tell you this today, was the best field drum ever made for college bands on the field. It had that canister snare thing. You just go click, you take it off, and you hold it in your hand, you make the adjustments, you get everything like a guitar string, get everything tuned, get the snares tuned, then you just pop it back underneath. Click! I mean, you're ready to go, man. And that drum, it was the best I've ever heard. And of course, Rogers went out of business, and I think even after FAMU got him, then Alabama State got him because Tom Lau had gone to Alabama State, and he took Shayla James' brother, Robert James, to be his percussion instructor. So that's how they ended up with Rogers Dynasonics at Alabama State. And because their style was similar to FAMU's. Even the drum cadences that they wrote at Alabama State were similar to FAMU's style. So the evolution now is, you know, I don't spend time watching a lot of videos and stuff, but I see them every now and then. And of course, when I was working with Tennessee State, teaching the drumline every August for 2 weeks, I would take 2 trips with them. That would be the Atlanta Classic, and then the Memphis game, Southern Heritage Classic. And I'm the one that helped design the heads for the Atlanta Classic when they used to get those Bank of America heads. I got one back there. With FAMU, and move out the way. See the Bank of America head back there? That's the heads that I got Remo to donate every year for quite a few years for the Atlanta Classic. Both bands got those bass drum heads. And so things have changed, and they're different. I can't say that I like everything that I see, but I've seen some new things I had never seen before, and guys are playing pretty well, and some guys are overplaying pretty well. But everybody got their own thing now, and because now you got all of this competition. Everybody trying to recruit the same students, and every kid is getting scholarships. In my day, there was no scholarships. I couldn't get a scholarship at Southern, so I gave up my 4-year scholarship at Texas Southern to go to Southern. I didn't have no scholarship. I got a tuition waiver so I didn't have to pay that out-of-state fee. You know, Dr. Freeman just took me down to the lawyer's office and said, "I'm going to be your guardian for 4 years. And so I signed this contract here, and then when you go through registration, you show this. It proves that I'm your guardian." And then once they put it in the system, that first time, then you never have to worry about this piece of paper again. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And all the cats, we had quite a few guys from Florida in that band, and they were all Ludwig Freeman was our guardian. You know, he was like our parent, I guess you call that. The grades didn't go to him, but the grades went to our parents. But that was one way to not have to pay out-of-state fee. It was pretty steep, especially giving up a 4-year scholarship to come to Southern. You know, 'cause no bands were giving scholarships. Maybe FAMU was giving some, but Southern, they didn't have no money for no scholarships. People were just coming there just because. And same thing at Tennessee State. When I got to Tennessee State in 1972, we didn't have no scholarships. I never heard the word scholarship until they sent me out on a recruiting trip one time, and they some kind of way, whatever money this was, it was a lot of money. And they said, Johnny, you can offer this as a full ride. You can offer this if the player is not so good. If somebody's kind of okay, you can offer this. And I said, okay. And I had all these forms. And I went through Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi and recruited like about 100 band members. I was in percussion, horn players, and all that. One of the best trumpet players in the world. I got when he was a senior, and he was on his way to the University of Florida. And once I recruited him, and I told him about William B. Fielder, who's the best trumpet player in the world. It's the guy that taught Wynton Marsalis and Terrence Blanchard. He was the assistant director with me at Tennessee State. And he told me what to do, how to do it, what to ask for, and what Auburn's page he wanted me to make sure they played and all that kind of stuff. And I brought him 2 trumpet players from Fort Pierce, Florida. And that was Will Miller and Duke Ellington and Clarence Ellington. They were awesome. And I did bring percussion players too. So that's the evolution of the HBCU. It's a lot of stuff in there, man. A lot of stuff, man. And people always wondered why I didn't stay in HBCU and why I left Tennessee State. I left Tennessee State because my dreams. You remember this little kid with the suit and tie on and shirt and tie on. I still had my dreams. I wanted to develop one of the best percussion programs in the world, and Tennessee State would not allow that. I mean, as a matter of fact, they started buying equipment for me, for my percussion ensemble and stuff like that, and they bought the new drum line and so forth. We had all chrome drums, and but then the chairman at that time, who was chairman of the music department, said, "That's it. You're not going to get anything else." And here I am, 23 years old at that time, and he's telling me, "That's it. You're not going to get anything else." Because I can remember when percussion was just a bass drum, snare drum, and a tenor drum player, tenor and a cymbal. That's what percussion is to me. This is what the chairman of the music department was telling me. And once I heard that, in my mind, I'm gone. And it was a shock because I had just gotten there, stayed 2 years, and in the spring of my second year, I had to get in front of the band and say, I'm leaving. I'm going to Eastern Illinois University. And they kids screaming out, "Traitor, traitor, what you mean? You giving up Tennessee State to go to a white school?" I'm going, "Oh man, you got to be crazy, prof." I see. I'm following my dreams. And to this point, I've always kept my eyes on the prize. I didn't let anybody or anyone get in the way of my focus on what I wanted to do in life. And so when I left Tennessee State, I stayed away from Tennessee State from 1974 to 1987. I didn't go back. I drove straight through Nashville every time, going to Florida from Illinois. Never stopped, never looked back, never said, "Oh man, what if I had stayed," and stuff like that. I mean, I had done so much. I did a lot of conducting. I conducted the band. I did the drill. I taught them how to march. I had the the dance routine committee. I did everything. I mean, I had all of this ability, and I knew that for me to fulfill myself as a percussionist, I had to let all of that go. I mean, even though I still know all of that stuff now, I just had to let it go and put my focus in on developing the percussion program, which I did, and to move forward with my career in field of percussion.
Yeah, here we are today.
Right.
Here we are today. Seems like you made a good decision to me.
I think I did from my standpoint
Right.
of going and teaching at a HBCU. People look at that like I did it for a lot of years because I did so much in those 2 years. It was a lot of stuff I did in 2 years, and a lot of people I met in 2 years. So I tell people today, I say I was blessed that I actually gave up that job at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I gave it up to go to Tennessee State. I mean, I already had a job. I had a contract. I'm at home packing my clothes to go to Wisconsin, and then I start getting the phone calls from Tennessee State. Frank Greer had walked away. They had hired Clifford Watkins, who was the band director of bands at South Carolina State. He dropped that and go to Tennessee State, and he knew me because he was in graduate school with me, and he knew where I was going. He knew I was going to Wisconsin. Then he started calling me and say, "No, I want you to come with me. You're going to be my director of percussion." I go like, "What?" I'm crying like a baby. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do nothing, man. My parents said, "Oh, what you going to do?" I said, "Oh, no." Every time I go and talk to my old band director, my counselor, Mr. Jenkins, in high school, they would say, "Tennessee State, man, you got to go to Tennessee State." Nobody would be on my side and say, "Yeah, you need to go to Wisconsin, man. You go play in the symphony. You go have that big, you got 27 percussion students waiting on you." And it'll be the first time they ever had a percussion instructor. And this would be the first time Tennessee State has had a percussion instructor. And man, I was just drawn. My parents said, "Get on the Greyhound bus and go to Nashville. Check it out." Got on the Greyhound bus, went all the way to Nashville on the Greyhound bus. And the rest is history, because as soon as I walked in the music building, the drum major started calling me Prof. Lane. I go like, "What? Prof. Lane? I've never heard that before, man," right? And all of a sudden, Prof. Lane, like they knew me. I didn't know anybody there but Watkins. You know, he was the director of band, new director of band. And he said, "We got to have you, Prof. We got to have you, man. Whatever it takes." They kept raising me money, more. We'll give you another $500. We'll give you another $500. That's how it was. Every phone call, and it made me sick. I couldn't eat. And so when I went to Nashville, and that's when went into the final thing was to go into the vice president of academic affairs, and he had a contract already waiting for me. He said, "Yeah, here's the contract. Sign it." I go like, "I can't. I already have a job. I'm going to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee." And they said, "No, you come to Tennessee State. We need you here. These kids need somebody like you with all that talent and ability. We need you here. And Watkins wants you. And the music department needs you." And I said, "What about University?" And the chairman said, "I'll take care of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee." And he typed up a letter that said, "Due to the circumstances, I cannot fulfill my duties at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Thank you very much. Sign." He said, "Now sign this paper." I signed it. I said, "How they gonna get it?" He said, "I'm gonna seal it up today, put a stamp on it, and we're gonna send it out today." And I knew when I got back home, and this was before answer machines and everything, every time the phone rang, I have to pick up the house phone, right? I knew the University of Wisconsin was gonna chew me out, and that's what they did. Chairman called me up. He had gotten the letter, and he was going like, "I cannot believe what I'm reading here. Blah, 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 blah. We had planned this big reception for you. Blah, 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 blah. The kids expecting you to come. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, you are our best candidate." And blah, blah. And I just said, I decided to go in the military. I said, I'm going in the military, and I'm not going to teach anywhere. I mean, I had to come up with something, man. It made me feel so bad. I felt so bad. And many years later, I meet the guy, and I walk up to him at a convention, and I said, "Dr. Rubin, you don't remember me, but I'm Johnny Lee Lane. You're chairman of the music department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee." He said, "Yeah. I said, "You don't remember me?" He said, "No." I said, I'm the guy that turned down the job and walked away a week before I was supposed to report." And he said, "Yeah, I remember you. Whatever happened?" He was really nice. I thought he was gonna curse me out whatever, man. But he was really nice, man. He said, we were lucky, man. The guy that came in you second, he was available, and that guy stayed 40 years. And up until like about 4 years ago when he retired. So that was my joy of going to Tennessee State, and I loved it. You know, I had some great students. The students started walking around with their briefcases. They were serious. We had practice rooms for percussion. I had a percussion ensemble, percussion jazz rock ensemble, and a drum set ensemble at Tennessee State during that time. And had some kids from Alabama State transfer to Tennessee State because they wanted to be with Fielder, William B. Fielder, you know, the famous trumpet player. He's passed away now. He came with me. It was me, it was Watkins as a director of band, William B. Fielder, assistant director, and me, assistant director and director of percussion studies on that staff. And I only stayed 2 years, and but I did a lot in 2 years. And a lot of those kids remember me from those 2 years. I'm meeting all these people all over again, and they in their 60s. And some of them getting pretty close to 70, because they were real close to me. Remember, I said I'm 71, so I got the Tennessee State students that I had. It used to be 68, 69, 70, and then the guy who was 4 years older than me, my graduate assistant, who came from FAMU, Don Turner. He has to be 77 right now, 76, yeah, because he's 4 years older than me, 75, and we all good friends, man. I mean, we always on Facebook together, and we have a good time, and most of them can't believe it, and I'm still out here doing my thing, man. I just know I'm not working at one institution and stuff like that anymore, so. Retired.
Thank you, Professor Lane, for that information that you provided with us. And actually, everything that you've talked to up until this point has just been real motivational for me. I'm sure Elijah as well, and our guests too. So we want to move into the next topic here. And if I think, Elijah, back to when you and I made it to Virginia State, this was back in 1996. And, you know, we had our career there, 96 to 2000. I think back and I think about the influences. And, you know, we had some great people coming with us in 96. You know, guy named Mario Blocker, really big influences on me. All around great people, helped me be a better percussionist as well. Man, keeping up with you was hard. That's all I can say. And and if I think about this, throughout my career at Virginia State, everyone had a positive influence on me in the drum line. You know, everybody might not have been on the same, you know, skill level, but everybody, you know, it was a great group of guys that I was around, and females that we were around as well in the drum line, and they all just had influences on me. What about you?
Okay. So before I even started playing, I would say my brother Shamark White influenced me to even play the drums. Also a graduate of Virginia State, played in the band, drumline, bass drum. Once I got to school, of course, you know, was, you know, you and Mario, man, you know, spending so much time, you know, as freshmen. I remember trying to play paradiddles in the room. We would have contests who can play me 250 beats per minute. You know, we would go back and forth, but, you know, you guys were very, you know, much influential on me, but especially you know, like I was big into marching, you was big into the mallets, drum set, concert. Even though I could play those instruments, it was, you know, I'm marching drumline is my thing, but you influenced me to, you know, I guess take the other stuff serious also. My present, I guess, influences would be Mr. Tim Green and Dr. Lamar Longhorn from A&T. That's because, you know, the way they instruct, the way they write, me being an arranger now, I'm really big into that. Them guys, you know, really do have an influence on me, you know, in the way I instruct and write, you know. Yeah, so that's about all I have.
So, Professor Lane, you've heard just a little bit about Elijah and myself with this and our influences, either past or present and everything. But we're real curious to know, who are your percussion influences, past and present? Would you mind talking to us about that?
Well, my first influence, of course, was my cousin J-Mo. My cousin J-Mo from Gulfport, Mississippi. 1961. Just happened to be on vacation for 2 years. I mean, for 2 weeks in Gulfport, and my cousin at the time was an R&B. He was first call. He was still in high school, around 11th and 12th grade, and he was playing with Otis Redding, Joe Tex, and all the people coming through that need to perform in Mobile and New Orleans and in the South. And as long as they can bring him back home and so he can go to school, that was just fine. J-Mo he practiced all day and all night. Now I'm trying to decide. I knew I was going into 7th grade, and I knew that I was going to be in band, and I didn't know what instrument I was going to play. Although I had been known, my mom always told me to stop playing on my fork on the plate. You know, I could play all FAMUK. I could play that on a fork with a fork, and I would always just be doing stuff like that. But then watching my cousin practice all day and all night, every day for 2 weeks, was my motivation. I mean, he was so into it, and I would just sit there in a chair and watch him practice. So something in me basically told me, in my heart, in my soul, that you're gonna be playing drums, percussion. And sure enough, of course, my cousin J-Mo is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I played 50 years with the Allman Brothers Band. That's J-Mo, the black guy in the band. J-Mo started in '69 with the Allman Brothers, and the white guys came in Chicago and saw him performing, and he was with Ted Taylor then, and when he took a break, them guys with the long hair came up to him and said, "Hey man, we want you to come down and audition for the group we putting together called the Allman Brothers Band, and we're going to be playing country, southern rock, and the rest is history." J-Mo goes down and he auditioned, and he gets the gig, and then the other drummer, who they at the time they were just looking for one drummer, and J-Mo just said, "Hey, if you don't hire Butch, I'm not coming." And they said, "Well, yeah, we're gonna have 2 drummers then." And so that's how the Allman Brothers ended up with 2 drummers. And those drummers, they were like this, like brothers. And that was my earliest motivation. And then my band director, once I started playing drums and I got that little old piece of practice pad and a stick, everybody else got flutes and trombones and everything else for beginning band. And the percussionist got a block of wood with some rubber on top of it and a pair of sticks. And I was upset with that. And I said, "Man," I thought I was going to be playing some drums. No, man, you got to learn how to play drums first. I was truly blessed because I was a classical piano player. I started when I was 8 years old. So I was already playing piano and stuff like that. I could read music and stuff like that. And I was singing. I was singing a lot of gospel music, and my idol, of course, was Sam Cooke. And that was my motivation. So when I got to start playing drums, all I had to do was just learn this technique. And he said, when you learn your rudiments, then you will have your parents buy you your drum. Remember, I told you have to buy your own drums. And so after 2 months, I learned all my rudiments in 2 months. And I could start them slow, and I could play them fast. I had gotten that record, Frank Arsenal, and I was listening to that record. I just listened to it, man. I said, "Ooh, that's the way I want to play. That's the way I want to sound." Had no idea that he was doing all of this. And because you just listen to the record. And so my band director, Lawrence Trapp, started me out, and I started meeting a lot of people around the state. Every drummer, this is something you're interested in, every drummer I met in the state of Florida, which had to be all black, right? Because we were segregated. The black festivals and solo and ensemble and all that were black. Every drummer from junior high to high school, all could play, all could read music, all had books under their arm, all turning pages, and we're playing together and reading and speed reading and whatever. All of the drummers I ever met could play in the state of Florida. And that says something. You look at back in the 60s, and say, wow, what was like? It was so easy for FAMU to just go through. They can close their eyes and recruit. It was so many good people coming from all Tampa, from all over the state of Florida. in Miami and Jacksonville. I mean, it was like they can just close their eyes. They didn't have to go. They didn't have to leave the state to find percussionists. And I don't think they had too many percussionists, especially in the marching band, from out of state. You know, they had the Memphis Twins, which is one of the guys that were my graduate assistant. The Memphis Twins, Donald and Ronald, came from Memphis, and but that's all I knew back then. And then went to college. And of course, I talked about Mr. Dillon. I had the trombone teacher at Texas Southern. That was G. David Peters as my first college teacher, and then Mr. Dillon. And then I met Bobby Christian. Bobby Christian came to Southern University to do a master clinic for a festival we had there in the spring. A lot of high school bands and stuff like that, and Bobby Christian did a master clinic. And then Bobby Christian, Southern University got ready to play their percussion ensemble concert for that group also, and one of the guys got sick. And Bobby Christian heard Mr. Dillon say, "Oh man, Gates is not going to be able to play." And Bobby came up and he said, "I'll play the part. I'll play his book." We looked at him and said, "Oh, okay." And I stood there next to Bobby Christian, hearing stuff I had never heard before. Man, Bobby is kicking. This man was the Mr. Total Percussion. He could play everything at a high level. I knew then this is what I wanted. I want to be just like Bobby Christian. And I ended up, many years later, studying with Bobby Christian. All right? And he taught at my U.S. percussion camp. And after that, I went on to Southern Illinois, got my master's. Studied with Mike Haynes. I was influenced also by Dr. Samuel A. Floyd. That's that other book, my marimba book, Formality and Independence for Marimba, by Johnny D. Lane and Samuel A. Floyd Jr. Now, this is history here. Samuel A. Floyd Jr. was the percussion teacher at FAMU before Shayla James. So when he left to go to SIU to get his master's and his doctorate, he left with the idea telling Foster, "I'll be back." But he never came back. And so when Shayla graduated, Shayla immediately became the percussion teacher down there at 22 years old. And he immediately had to get into graduate school at Florida State. So Foster could justify, "Hey, this is my new percussion instructor." And of course, Shayla's been there for over 50 years. All right, so that's the history. So you had James Latimer, which was the first one that I knew, in 1957. He stayed. He took the, I think it was Sam Floyd that took him to, was it Ted Mack Amateur Hour? I'm not sure, the percussion ensemble. James Latimer, who ends up at University of Wisconsin forever and retired. And he's a good friend of mine. And then Sam Floyd, and then Shayla James. So that's the history of percussion at FAMU. And James Latimer graduated from Indiana University. And he studied with Richard Johnson, who was African American, the first African American college percussion professor. Just so happened he was at Indiana University, and Indiana University became like the second school in the Big Ten to offer a degree in percussion. University of Illinois was the first school to offer a degree in percussion in the United States. All right, so this book was written, me and Dr. Sam Floyd. And Dr. Sam Floyd passed away a few years ago, and so it carries on his stuff in here with that. And the other book is Hand Drum Trios, written by Johnny D. Lane and Terrence Mayu. Terrence is one of my former students. He got his master's from me at Eastern Illinois University. He's the professor at University of Indianapolis, here in Indianapolis. So it was easy for us. He's come over here, and we had to write these hand drums. So I got a set of congas right there, and a set of congas facing each other, and that's how and then we locked in a beat that we recorded, and then that's how we got these trios. And you can add as many people you want on the trios, you know. And all the trios are named after my students. I always gave nicknames to all my students. I never call them by their real name. Sometimes when they get to be seniors, I ask them what their name is. I didn't know, all right? Like the infamous one, that's Marvin Spars. The Groove Maker. Groove Maker is the professor of percussion here at Butler University, where I teach adjunct. John is here great program. Just did a percussion ensemble concert just the other night. Reverend Doctor is my student, Ricky Burkhead, at Ole Miss. He's been at Ole Miss for almost 30 years now. A monster is Louis Nash, the famous jazz drummer. He taught in my percussion camp. So the list goes on, man. Every piece in here is a nickname. Houston Connection is Sam Dinkins. He has a music store and a teaching facility right there in Houston, Texas. And his nickname was Houston Connection because he brought a lot of kids to my camp from Houston. And I gave him the nickname Houston Connection. Hammer is a Tennessee State graduate, Craig Williams, who is one of the fantastic hand drummers, percussionists in the world, and he owns that big company that supply stages for festivals and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, in New Orleans, one festival a couple years ago, he had 11 stages with all his equipment. That's pianos, amps, drums, everything you can imagine, and so forth. But this book here is published by Roloff Publications, and you can't get this on Amazon, so you have to order this from Roloff. All right, and it's a great book. This is my latest book, so forth and so on. And then I went on to graduate school, studied with Bobby Christian afterwards, studied with Tom Syree at the University of Illinois where I was working on my doctorate. And it was there under Tom Syree that I kind of developed my style of teaching. I kind of knew. I knew I had to have percussion ensemble at 11 o'clock every day, which was just like the University of Illinois. You have percussion ensemble rehearsal every day at 11. And you can have multiple things. You didn't have to have percussion ensemble. You can have mallet groups. You can have a master class on one of those days and all that. You can have 3 days of percussion ensemble. You can have every day of percussion ensemble. I just wanted to make sure that there was percussion ensemble every day, and it did not interfere with music majors having to skip a class because they were in percussion ensemble. So if there was a course offered at 11 o'clock, they had to offer that course again at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock so those students could take that class. So I had it worked out pretty good. And I studied with the great Alan Dawson, drum set. That's the guy that taught Tony Williams, John Robinson, Steve Smith, everybody you can think of. Studied with Alan Dawson. He was the head of the percussion department at Berkeley for 18 years. And he started teaching at home, and the studio at home got to be so big that everybody at Berkeley wanted to go over there and study with Alan Dawson. And so that's pretty much my history. And I did take a lesson with the timpanist in the Cleveland Orchestra, Paul Yancich, and so forth and so on. So that's my history. And as far as people that motivated me and got me there, and people that stayed by my side, all my teachers stayed by my side. I never walked away from them because they're the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, and they know that they are deeply appreciated. You know, I already talked about Frank Arsenault, how important he was. You know, not only did I see him as an undergrad and studied with him 3 or 4 days in Houston, I also saw him toward the end of my graduate working at Southern Illinois. He came. And he looked at me and said, "Johnny, you still around?" I go like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm ready for the next lesson. Let's do it." And I had already developed the elbow thing. He had never seen that before. And he said, "Man, you sound just like me. You even look like me." I said, "Yeah, the only difference is that you white and I'm black." And I said, "That's the only difference." I said, "But everything else, I have what you have. I just want to get it better like you." I said, "You got to show me some stuff, man. You got to show." It was so much fun studying with him because it wasn't like I was a beginner and trying to figure it out and all that. I knew, and I had to develop. And I got in front of that mirror. I always tell people, I say, the best teacher in the world is a mirror, because the mirror will not lie. So if you see something doofus in the mirror, it's real. It look doofus for people that's watching you. So if you're looking funny, I used to get on the Tennessee State Drumline people when I'd be there for 2 weeks. They had these ugly looking, they just look mean. I'm going like, I said, I hope that don't come out in your plan. I said, percussionists are not mean. I say, this is the best group of people you ever seen in your life. It's a big, huge family reunion. You know, I say, why would you want to look mean? To let the other section know that you mad? Like you... whatever, it doesn't make you a better player. I say, you're still making mistakes. I say, straighten your face up. I say, as long as I'm here, I don't want to see nobody looking ugly. And though they had to straighten their faces up when I was around, but then when I would come back and travel with them, I noticed they had put that look back on their faces again. I'm like, man, it's sad. But at least I tried to make a difference, and they knew it, and I have respect. I mean, most of those kids, a lot of them are Facebook friends of mine now. They're grown people in their 40s and their 50s, and they just one of them getting ready to study with me again. Guy teaches a little bit in Flint, Michigan. He said, "Prof, I'm paying for a whole month." I said, "Okay." So I'm getting ready to set him up with Zoom lessons and stuff. So it's a lot of fun, man, especially when you start going back and teaching students again. You know, that's it's amazing. And the students I placed in the HBCUs who studied with me and got their masters and all that. They are Billy Bethea, William Bethea, who's director of bands and percussion instructor at Norfolk State. He got his master's from me. And Pedro Ari at Bethune-Cookman. I remember when Howard Bray called me up, who was the director of bands at that time, and said, "Johnny, I need a percussion teacher, and I need him now," because he always tried to imitate Isaac B. Graves, the way he was talking. And I said, "I got the person who's graduating in 2 weeks. His name is Pedro Ari, and he is your man." So Pedro has been down there for almost 30 years now at Bethune-Cookman, you know, and Don Parker there is in Georgia, and who else in HBCU? Larry Jones. Okay, Larry Jones was with me at Tennessee State. He followed me to Eastern Illinois. He became my first graduate assistant at Eastern Illinois. In 1976, the people from Prairie View called me and said, "Johnny, I heard that you can send me a percussion teacher." I said, "I got just the person. His name is Larry Jones, and he's graduating, and I'll send him down for an interview." And that's what happens. He goes down to Prairie View in 1976, and he gets the job, and he's been there since 76. I was just talking to Larry just the other day, and as a matter of fact, yesterday. And I said, "Larry," I said, "man, you've been at Prairie View since 1976, man. That's like 46 years or something like that, 40, something like that." And he said, yeah. He said, "Man," I said, "I bet you still wearing those James Brown high heel shoes." He said, "Well, nowadays in Texas we call them boots." I said, "Because when he was at Tennessee State in Eastern, man, you remember James Brown had them high heel shoes? I mean, yeah. Larry was notorious for wearing those high heel shoes, man." And we laughed about that yesterday, man. So he's still at Prairie View. Larry Jones, Tennessee State grad, got his master's from Eastern Illinois University, and he's been at Prairie View forever. Yeah, and I've tried to see who else. I know I got some more. Oh, I got Tony Aramesi. He teaches at Winston-Salem State. He's not African American. He's a white guy. Incredible percussionist. Just unbelievable percussionist. He got his undergrad from me. And my student that teach part-time at Tennessee State, he teaches the commercial music majors and stuff, is Greg Lohman. He's a full-time recording artist, and he travels all over out of Nashville. And he teaches about 6 or 7 students at Tennessee State, adjunct. And yeah, so I think as far as HBCUs, I know I'm gonna miss somebody, you know, in HBCU, because I got so many students, you know. I have, you know, of course I said Ricky Burkhead, he's at Ole Miss, you know, he's African American. He came from Mississippi Valley. Pedro and Ricky Burkhead both graduated from Mississippi Valley. And just so happened that the Mississippi Valley teacher at that time was a white guy I had sent down to Mississippi Valley to teach percussion, Jeff Pelleton. And Jeff Pelleton turned around and said, "John, I got 2 students that need to get their masters. I'm sending them to you." And that was Ricky Burkhead, who's at Ole Miss, professor at Ole Miss now, and Pedro Ari. And then Ricky McCool, he teaches part-time adjunct at Norfolk State right now with Billy Bethea, William Bethea. Yeah, so you see how all this just come together after so many years, man. It's just all connects in a way, you know.
Thank you, Professor Lane, for all this good wealth of information. But before we go, you know, we do have a bonus question. If you could work with one HBCU drumline for a month, who would it be?
If I had to spend 1 month with one drumline, which one would it be? Now, see, it's got to be between Tennessee State and Southern, because that's the only 2 places that I actually say did something like that. but it would be Southern University because of I know the history. I know how to clean up whatever have to be cleaned up. I know all the cadences. I just feel that I would best suit Southern University more so than any other school.
Okay, Professor Lane, that was really great. So we know if you could work with one HBCU drumline for a month, we know it would be Southern. We're getting ready to close on out. But before we do, could you show us those drumsticks again?
Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I was just curious. They look really good. Can you show us something? Could you show us a couple of things real quick?
Yeah, but you know, just for me to show you something, man, like I said, you call Shayla James tonight and say you want to invite. Oh, I see you got the Ralph Hardeman. See, Ralph and I are good friends, man. As a matter of fact, on my book, what sticks do you see?
The Ralph Hardeman.
Yeah. So I tell Ralph, I say, man, you owe me, man, big time, man. I say, look, on my book, man, it's your sticks, man. So you owe me big time. And so we always laugh and joke about that. Yeah, you better call Shayla James tonight and tell them to send you an invite for the thing. It's 4 p.m. tomorrow. And they go put it on a big screen in the band room, and you know that big old huge band room they got down there, seats 600. So it's gonna be packed with students and everything. I'm doing the rudiments in slow motion, all of them.
Okay.
So if you're interested, just call Shayla James and tell him to send you an invite. Connect with him. He's on Facebook also. So
Sounds good, Professor Lane. I just wanted to say thank you. This has been such a treat. You've given
thank you so much.
I appreciate
It's been wonderful, man. You didn't put me in a corner or anything like that. I thought you were gonna put me in a corner, but
Of course not.
with a question, man. But I can understand. But I appreciate what you guys are doing, and it means a lot to know that you who you are and what.
Wow. Well, like I said, once again, very good information, a lot of history. I'd like to thank Professor Lane for everything, he said. But once again, we have come to an end. Myself, along with Ricardo, we'd like to thank Professor Lane for taking time out of his busy day to join us on our podcast, HBCU Drumline Talk. For all of our viewers and listeners, please like and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, HBCU_drum_line_talk, Spotify, SoundCloud, Pandora, and iHeartRadio. Quick reminder for our Rangers Challenge. Submissions are due no later than April 1st, so please get those in. And other than that, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Have a good afternoon.
Guys, have a great evening.
Be good.